So welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those who have come to a previous meeting of the Uplift Coalition. My name is Melissa James, and I'm the president and CEO of REACH, and it is an honor to be here welcoming you alongside Bruce Stensley of the EDC and Tara Goraya of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. Together, we make up the Uplift Coalition, our three organizations partnering together to uplift the Central Coast region and the Central Coast residents. We have worked together on a variety of different opportunities to bring investment and resourcing to our region, from Build Back Better, the federal grant program, to SURF, which is a state grant program that we submitted for earlier this summer. And today we are excited to have a conversation with you about a new grant opportunity through the National Science Foundation. It is the Regional Innovation Engines program, and we are pulling together our resourcing to apply for a phase one opportunity, which is a $1 million planning grant focused on the space and aeronautics industry. So we will unpack that in a little bit more detail, but that is what we're here to chat with you about today. As you're coming in, folks coming in from the waiting room, and those of you who are here with us, we would love to meet and greet with you kind of virtually over chat. If you would be willing to use the chat to just introduce yourself, the organization in which you represent, and maybe where in the region you hail from, and that will help us to get acquainted with one another as well. And then the other thing that we like to ask folks to do, and just another point of reference for us getting to know one another, is to kind of update our nameplate. And you can do that by pressing the three dots at the top right corner of your little video box. If you hover over, they should pop up, and then you kind of scroll down, click rename, and if you could just add your organization to your name, that would be great, and it will help all of us to get to know one another. So with that, I'll do it for mine as well, so you can kind of see how that works. I would love to turn it over to Bruce to join me in welcoming all of you to the discussion today, and then Tara.
Thank you, Melissa. Hello, everyone. Lots of friendly and familiar faces. We've been on these calls before and looking forward to moving ahead with this. As Melissa set this up, and as we're looking forward to the next 30, 40, 50 minutes here in a conversation, this is an exciting time for us to be looking at some real regionalism. These 6 counties, Central Coast, have so many extraordinary assets, and we had an opportunity to be introduced to so many of you in all sorts of different domains, from education to environmental justice and everything in between, looking at how we could network all of our strengths. And now we're moving ahead, not just with that kind of broad umbrella approach to regional economic recovery, but to a specific manifestation of economic growth, economic engine, this whole aeronautics world. We have so many assets in the 6-county area in the industry side, but most importantly, the assets are all the folks like you on the call who can help us figure out strategically how to bring these together, grow the economy, add jobs, retain these businesses, and grow and attract new ones. So looking forward to sharing more about the Uplift strategy on aeronautics, and I'll kick it over to our extraordinary partner, Tara. It's up to you.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Again, as my colleagues mentioned, my name is Tara Goraya. I'm the president and CEO of Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. Happy to be here. As has, I don't want to repeat ourselves again, given the short amount of time, but it's an exciting time in that there are so many opportunities across the state and the federal landscape, as well as private philanthropy. And Uplift Central Coast Coalition continues to come together and look at opportunities that we can go after between the 6 counties of Santa Cruz all the way down to Ventura. And to that end, very happy to try to go after this opportunity. We do have a short window, and we want to get as much input as possible. But just really high level, I wanted to go through some slides on what National Science Foundation specifically is looking for, what it's really about, and what it's aiming to do. So it's a federal program that's fostering or looking to foster regional innovation ecosystems or engines more equitably across the country And each engine will focus on a national, of an issue that's of national importance. In our case, it'll be aviation and aeronautics space, and making sure that we have a diverse stakeholder, not a mix of diverse stakeholders, not just geographically across our 6 counties, but also in the industry, the nonprofits, the workforce development, and academia. What NSF is looking to do this time, typically we know National Science Foundation to fund academic institutions really in the R&D space. This go around, they really want to make sure that's inclusive across not just, again, I mentioned geographic area, but also initially for the type 1 that we are going after is to create a strategic plan, an economic development plan, or a strategy of how we as a region envision ourselves as a true economic engine or a hub or a node, however you would like to phrase it. And how can we as a Central Coast put ourselves on the map and as a national sort of security issues, given the work and the various assets that live here. So it is highly competitive. There will be 50 type 1 grants that will be awarded. There are several that will apply to California, and we really hope with what we're proposing and what we're envisioning and with your assistance that we could be highly competitive. And to Bruce's point earlier, we have a number of assets in this region, and we really like to sort of an opportunity to leverage that and as you know, we've already, as Melissa mentioned, worked together with the Build Back Better opportunity a year ago. Most recently, many of us know each other through the SURF application. And now we're gearing up with a very short window, a sprint to September 29th, the deadline to submit this to this federal program. And so we're sort of really eager and anxious to get this going because we really do think we have a great opportunity. So in the next slide, we'll sort of go over briefly about what we're envisioning. You can read this for yourself, but just really high level, what will happen is that if we're awarded for type 1, it's a 2-year, $1 million planning grant. I get it, it's not a lot of money, it's across a lot of counties, but I do think, and we at the Central Coast Coalition and many of you partners have also articulated, we still should position ourselves to figure out how we can leverage further resources. In this case, if awarded, if we put together a sound plan, we can go after what's called type 2 funding. And what that really means is a decade investment from National Science Foundation to a tune of $160 million. We're not there yet. If funded, that'll be $1 million just to simply organize ourselves. But the vision is truly that in the next decade, the 6-county Central Coast region will be home to a thriving West Coast space and aeronautics innovation corridor. Much of what we already have, but how can we organize around this? And to achieve this vision, the Uplift Central Coast Coalition will harness resources, catalyze and accelerate the region's multidimensional technology strengths, stimulate the workforce development that increases underserved populations in the workforce pathways, in the talent pool, engage educational institutions and bridge centers of industry. And we'll get a little bit later in our slides to map out what those assets look like. Many of you already engaged in those spaces, and there's a lot probably we are also missing. So to that end, we really sort of turn to you as our community to make sure we have the right things in our application, the right ingredients, so we can truly leverage this opportunity. And as I mentioned, it's a little bit of a sprint that we back into in telling our tale in approximately 15 pages to make the case. But I think it's doable, and we count on you to do that. And the next slide, I think I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, I believe.
I actually think this one's for Bruce. It's like a juggle between us.
There we go. Thank you, Tara. And so just a couple of slides from my end on this. And this page here gives you a little bit of a flavor of where we're at and what we're thinking and taking it to another step. So our concept paper was submitted, it's been approved, accepted, and so we're invited for proposal development. That doesn't mean that we're in the door, but at least it means we've passed a certain hurdle of relevance and that we're putting together the right kind of structure, the right strategy. As you know, we're doing this again as a regional coalition, 6 counties. Monterey Bay Partnership, covering Monterey, of course, Santa Cruz, San Benito, reach in the middle with base in San Luis Obispo, and in Santa Barbara, and our EDC in Ventura County, Ventura, and sharing some of that Santa Barbara space. But more important, we are all looking at multi-sectoral sort of assets from public agencies. Thank you, several of you who are on the call. Education, workforce, as you're going to see in a moment, is absolutely critical. And we want to be industry demand driven, of course, when we're looking at aeronautics and we're looking at this. A little bit more on that in a second. So we've been saying over and over again that we believe and know that we have a number of assets, and we're not going to list all of those for you here, but some of those I'm sure you're all familiar with. Vandenberg is an enormous anchor in this, strategically, physically, by every measure. Space Force Base, we've got 7 other additional military installations just in our neighborhood, provincially in Ventura County, Naval Base Ventura County, with all sorts of assets, a huge air range for test and activity out across the ocean. And all of these folks are incredibly supported by our high-end universities, engineering programs, community colleges in particular, and a key point that we'll be harping on, reaching into the K-12 network as well, and of course, industry. And we've also got these hubs in and throughout the region. And so we've got all sorts of expression, manifestation, growth of network activity and bringing the assets together. But now we want to do this across 6 counties. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So our purpose is very clear, right? We want to take all of these existing assets, and yes, we want to enhance them. We want to make them stronger, but mostly also we want to be able to knit them together and be strategic. And the sum of the total of our parts is going to be stronger than they are separately kind of strategy. So all of those networks. But here's the real important point for all of you as well. We have a bedrock purpose beneath all of this. And it is, of course, these basic points. Number one, we're not looking at industry for the sake of industry. We're looking at industry for the sake of growing community, quality places to live, serving historically underserved populations, broadly shared prosperity. We know that COVID, and even pre-COVID, we had wildly disproportionate circumstances for different populations, different regions, different geographies, and we want to do uplift seriously. We want this to be an industry demand-driven point, again, as stated, skilled trades, supplying skill and diverse workforce, a lot of workforce focus on this, talent, new investment to spur regional entrepreneurship. So in economic development, you know, it's sort of the old story. We want to grow and retain the businesses we have. We want to attract businesses when we can, but this is hugely about entrepreneurship. This is about innovation. National Science Foundation is hugely focused on that. So this is about how we take our talents and create new businesses, new opportunities from all of those resources. And that's the transformational innovation, all of this. And we think that we want to impact the larger regional communities, but we can do this by a focus on aerospace specifically with a broad range of jobs. This isn't the only industry sector we'll ever look at, but it's one that we're focused most on, of course, now with NSF. One more piece, and then I'm just about out. Some of you may have seen this picture, the slide before. We've got this extraordinary geography, the best geography in America. You know, let's be real, who wants to live anywhere else? We're close to our big urban centers, north and south, but we've got this coastal community and these assets. We've got sort of 3 concentrations here, and I'll just look at the southern hub. This is not to be exclusive and say we're going to focus on 3 different kinds of areas. Rather, we're going to create a unified, integrated, strategic process for communicating our assets between and among us. But we're also recognizing that we've got concentrations of certain kinds of assets that we want to share throughout the region. In our southern area, we've got an inclusive innovation hub in collaboration with GoBiz. We've got a tech bridge designated by the US Navy. We've got these installations that are focused on R&D and prototyping. So we think we've got a huge set of contributions, but what we want to do is network them throughout the region. I think I'm going to kick it back to Tara to talk about the northern region then.
Thanks, Bruce. No, absolutely. So to the point that we've said a few times about assets, up here in the northern Tri-County region of Santa Cruz, San Benito, and Monterey, a lot lives here, from drone and aeronautics innovation work here with DART, with Joby, the vertical sort of electronic takeoff and landing, the Defense Language Institute, and a whole host of things. There's also a tech bridge out here, a federally designated tech bridge out here. So again, how can we, create a linkage across the 6 counties with all that is common and yet all that is different, and how do we uplift that? And there's also a number of efforts, even in the K-16 space, of creating those pathways to support the workforce. So each innovation hub will have this tech focus, and we'll try to organize ourselves around workforce training and research and development, all things that the NSF application calls for, and all that I think we can position ourselves for the Type 1 grant, and then further, again, once funded, further plan out and organize. And I'll kick it over to Melissa.
Great, thank you. And I'm just going to share a little bit about the asset that we have in the central part of the region in kind of the launch industry, both as the hub that we have at Vandenberg Space Force Base, the Western Range, and massive growth happening in the space industry taking place globally. And then right here in our kind of backyard, we think of the Central Coast as space country, and it's kind of the best kept secret. And, our work together in the Uplift Coalition, we don't want it to be a secret anymore. We want it to be an opportunity for immense investment and growth. And so some of the elements that we have to leverage off of is we do have some really critical partnerships with the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, the Space Force, Cal Poly, the County of Santa Barbara, that are looking at developing out a kind of thriving commercial space enterprise at Vandenberg, both on site and then in and around the surrounding area. There's been some new innovation taking place to look at how we can leverage existing assets to upgrade them into the space economy, with an example of the Paso Robles Airport now moving forward to be put in an application to become a horizontal launch spaceport. So as you think about the Central Coast region and the opportunities in space, we have, quite a lot of, no pun intended, launch pads here in the region. So I think with that, you kind of get a flavor of these really world-class innovation hubs that are in the space and aeronautics industry, sprinkled up and down the Central Coast, that and leverage these types of opportunities and kind of optimize what would be a Central Coast Space and Aeronautics Innovation Corridor. So on the next slide, I'm going to share just a little bit about some of the key work streams. So we know that we have this opportunity. We know that, there is work to be done to really cultivate the opportunity. What might that look like in a phase 1 kind of grant application? This slide kind of shares a little bit about the building blocks of the application, what NSF is looking for that would go into one of these engines. And, what they want to see is that we're catalyzing and spurring innovation and economic growth and opportunity. So these building blocks from kind of left to right are workforce development, that it's critical that we're building the talent pathways to fuel, the innovation and growth, to retain and grow and attract, highly skilled workforce, that we want to create these opportunities to uplift the residents that we have in our region, and how you're creating equitable pathways into the economic opportunities that you're trying to create. So this is the key kind of work stream. To the next one to the right, research and development, really looking at how you can be accelerating R&D across kind of key areas of focus. For us, we've identified that in space and aeronautics, which breaks out into, a handful of different kind of sub-industries, which you can kind of read throughout there on the slide. And then moving into translation and commercialization, how are you taking ideas and putting them out into to grow into the marketplace? So translating that innovation into new products and services, and kind of that startup and innovation ecosystem. We have some really interesting assets up and down the Central Coast with our military partnerships, and some of the kind of startup opportunities. Tech Bridge is one in particular that we have sprinkled up and down the Central Coast region in Monterey, and as a kind of satellite at Camp Roberts, and then down into Ventura as assets that we want to look at. And then a really important component is how are you building the ecosystem around these opportunities with a broad and diverse cross-section of partners who are helping to both develop it and benefit from the economic growth and opportunity that you're creating. So these are the things that we need to be kind of holding and thinking about as critical ingredients into the engine. On this next slide, I think this will be our last one before we are going to pivot to talking at you and hoping to hear from you. But we wanted to go one click deeper into workforce development for a couple of reasons. One, it has surfaced as an imperative for the Central Coast in general, but very specifically to the space and aeronautics sector. We hear from industry that there is a strong demand for a skilled workforce. They need it today, and they know that if they're going to be able to grow and expand, they're going to need it exponentially into the future. So we will be limited if we aren't addressing this particular pain point. The other component of it is, we are really, as the Uplift Coalition, you hear us keep saying over and over, we're really about uplifting Central Coast residents, and you just cannot have a conversation about equity and opportunity without thinking about how you're building career pathways from kindergarten all the way up through higher education. So that need of how are we creating the pathways and the entry points for people to enter into a growing kind of STEM workforce. We've seen some successes of this up and down the Central Coast, where industry is kind of leaning in, partnering with educational partners to try to meet some of these needs, and small pilot projects up and down the Central Coast. An example is a recent one with ACI Jet and Cuesta College for an aviation mechanics program. We think these types of things can grow and scale. There's many other examples across the Central Coast. And I think this, you heard me say it a second ago, but the significance of really thinking about kind of that K-12 career pathway development. So not just thinking about skilled workforce from like the other end of the pipeline. Oh, we need to make sure we're getting people out of the pipeline and into jobs, which yes, we do. We want to be thinking about it as well from a pathway perspective, and how are we developing and cultivating the pathways for young people to move up into a variety of different careers in the space and aeronautics sector. We have examples of this up and down the Central Coast with local school districts up to the north with the Land and Sea and Air CTE program. We have an I-Innovate program on this and kind of the SLO region. There's many others, but there's examples of these types of collaborations taking place. And I could kind of go on and on. I think our goal is how can we have a conversation about workforce development in space and aeronautics at a regional level. What is the demand that we are forecasting out into the future? What jobs and how many and by when? And where are the gaps? And what do we need to do to create kind of a robust kind of talent pathway system, ecosystem across the Central Coast to fit in those gaps? So this, we're sharing a little more detail about this particular component because it has been really underscored as a critical need. And we want to hear from you today and how we can really think about developing this component of the application and the opportunities kind of related to it. So I think with that, we are going to shift gears and we're going to move into breakout groups. And what you're going to see in just a moment is a prompt that you can kind of choose your own adventure, and you can go into one of 3 different breakout groups. So we're going to have one for the Northern Hub, one for the Central Hub, and one for the Southern Hub. And you can pick whichever one you want to contribute to. They each have a little bit of a different industry kind of focus, but overall, we're going to be talking about the 6-county region and this critical kind of workforce component. So no matter what adventure you choose, you're going to have a really great conversation, so you can't go wrong. So I think with that, I am going to open up the breakout rooms, and you should see kind of down at the bottom of your screen, there should be like a breakout icon that you can click on, open up, and then you can pick which room you'd like to go to, and then we'll have some dialogue with all of you once you get there. Do you guys see? You guys seeing it? Okay, awesome.
This is Tom Atchison. I'm kind of jumping in, I think, on the central group here.
Sure.
Even though we're located up in the north, just because of our 15 years of operational experience and working in the development of the space sector. So I
Yeah,
think
that'd be perfect.
value added here. Though we are really focused on workforce development up in the northern area, though we're open to other areas as well.
Mhm.
Anyway, I picked one. So
Perfect. That is perfect.
This is Doug with Santa Cruz Works. How do I get into a group?
You know, I can help you if you're having trouble. Michael and Josh, if you guys want to go to the central one, and let me help get these folks where they need to go. So did you say Doug? Which one did you want to go to?
Oh, now I see, I'm sorry. I got it. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. I'm gonna move some people.
Hi, this is Chris Fly. I'm actually on the phone.
Oh yeah, I can move you.
Move me.
Do you want to go to, are you in the northern hub?
Yeah.
I'll send you over
Yeah,
there.
the northern. Okay, great. Thank you.
think everybody from the other groups is going to all come in at the same time. Okay. Okay, well, I think I'll look for Bruce in here as well. I think we're gonna just wrap up. Josh, I don't know if you want to throw up that slide with just the quick next steps. So thank you everyone for spending a little bit of your afternoon with us to just dialogue around some of these ideas. I know we had a discussion that could have lasted much longer, but had some really good input. I'm sure that was the same from all three groups. We wanted to make sure that you see that you can reach out to anyone that you know and have a relationship with in the Uplift Coalition with ideas and questions. You can also send an email to the uplift@reachcentralcoast.org that we all kind of monitor for input and feedback. Just a note, this is kind of a sprint to the finish line of trying to pull together an application by the end of September. If you're energized by some of the thinking and work that's happening and you want to kind of contribute, send us a note. We are going to be asking for partners and letters of collaboration and how this kind of ecosystem develops for the application and much larger beyond. And then you'll hear from us this week with the recording, with the slide deck and kind of a follow-up email as well that you can also reply to. So those are just a couple next steps. Let me turn to Tara and Bruce with any other closing comments and reminders.
That's pretty much it. I think you did a great summary. I think the bottom line is in this sprint, to the extent that we can all be coordinated in our efforts, and anyone who's interested in submitting a collaborative letter and not just a sort of a general letter of support. I think something very specific that you or your entity or your regional sort of organization can do to support the aviation and aeronautics application. Is it in terms of workforce development and R&D, what assets are you immediately connected with and what you could be willing to offer? Because that is something that NSF is looking for, as much specificity as possible. So that is something that we said, reach out to any of us or send an email to their Uplift email. I don't know if I've frozen, so hopefully you can hear me.
You're back.
Not
You're
kick it back. Bruce.
Just a bit. Nothing more to add on my end, just to repeat those key points. Share with us any other folks, organizations, individuals that you may know or think of that would be quality assets, connections, drivers for this. We're happy to work with you directly, each of us, on letters of commitment and participation, as noted, the more specific. That's not only to help us be competitive in an application, but also to better inform how we put this thing together and think strategically about how we should be going about this. We are going after planning money, which means we'll have lots of opportunity if we're funded to figure out how we connect all these assets in the most effective way. But right now it's about how do we get the partnerships together to really be competitive. Melissa, the last word goes back to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.